progress in. She's 2 seconds from me. Nice! I'm 10 hours and 21 minutes away. Look. 10 hours and 21 minutes.
It was 20. 9. 11. There's a slow one we're looking for. Out of 6, only 2 are good. But I used a different dice.
Well, it's already suckered you in.
There you go.
You already got it started?
Yeah. Yep. Like 3 minutes long. Where's my cushion? I need my cushion. Want your cushion?
Yeah, get comfortable. Explain to all these people why you're wrong. I don't know why you're wrong. We'll figure it out. There's the shirt. Tread lightly.
That was my goal. Nobody wanted to do that.
Teesprings gets a lot more money now. And what was your goal, guys? We all just band together. He's not gonna kick you out of the game. You get to make new characters.
All I need is enough XP to solo the dragon.
That's right.
You only have to reroll like 8 times each.
And realistically, if you're just gonna let me kill you, he may not make you make the character sheet up.
That's right.
And now that we're beyond the level 10 break, you don't go below level 10, so it's not like I'm killing level 5s.
Exactly.
But if I as Alvis solo a party of 7 level 10s, that skyrockets some XP there.
They just don't want it bad enough, man.
They didn't. Mm-hmm. And we already started?
Yeah.
You sure it's on?
It's on.
Oh, usually I see like 2 different screens of us over there.
Oh, 'cause I didn't put the other one back. Is that better?
It just threw me off. I'm like, man, if I can't see my pretty face, what the hell?
At least 2 times?
That's right, man. God damn it. A minute.
You can start us off today.
Alright. A couple other things too. So, if I'm doing DM sculpting as far as world goes, and you can do it as far as character goes, building character into the story. You know?
Yeah. And I can talk about kind of what I like to see DMs do, like what's cool
Right.
settings and stuff. Yeah. Alright, we'll go ahead and start whenever you're ready.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Tabletop RPG Now. I believe this is episode 6. As we told you last time, we're going to talk about sculpting settings, your campaign setting, along with a few other things. Again, I'm your host, Dallas, with
Fort.
and we're going to try to do the best we can to also talk on the campaigns guide that came out for Elemental Evil. That's fun. And we're going to try to make sure that your campaign is being sculpted and utilized properly so you get the most use out of it. That sounds about right, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
There's a lot of words there. Something's probably right.
So first thing, guys, talking about sculpting your world, it's kind of a tricky. It's really tricky to start because you don't really know where to start. There's so much you can do. But for today's episode, we're gonna keep it simple, and we're just gonna focus on building City X. Okay, we're gonna call it the city of New Haven. We're gonna talk about the city of New Haven today, and New Haven, for some of you guys that are watching this, probably know that it's that's actually like the most common used name for a city in a D&D setting. It was voted one of the most popular names used. So part of your job as a dungeon master is to make sure that every city's not the same. So you can do little things to start off, but most importantly, guys, there needs to be key NPCs in your city. Now, I'm not telling you to print out 32 character sheets because the blacksmith's level 4, the other guys level 3. That's not what I'm saying. Not everyone is class, not everyone is level, right? Just like, again, if you look in the back of your monster manual, there's a creature called the Gladiator, and it's based on it being a human, but you can make it anything, right? He's a warrior-based creature, but he's not a fighter. He's not a barbarian. It's a gladiator. And then there's the veteran, right? So classes are supposed to be unique. I'm not saying that your weaponsmith in town or your arms trader or whatever isn't maybe a level 3 or level 4. I'm just saying that not everyone needs to be. And guys, so if you look, there's older books that touch base on it, and I'm sure 5th will too. Guys, for lack of better terms, leveled characters, be it NPCs or not, are very rare. Heroes by design are not common. That's why they're heroes. So don't take away from your party. So if you're like, man, my party's going to kill the armor, blah, 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 so I need to make him a level 25 in every class so they won't attack him. That's not exactly realistic. Eventually, that stuff will come back to haunt them. Guards will come and they'll get worn down. Like if they go that route. But you can name your guys and kind of give the more backstory in the history you give your inn keeps, the different inns. Not you're at inn, you're at this inn and you go, oh, it's the jury inn or the spike inn, or and then it's a girl at the table. It doesn't really say anything. You want your party to one day come to you and say, hey, I need to go talk to Jen. I have a question to ask her because we're not going to be here when our allies get here, and I want to go ahead and make sure the rooms are taken care of. No, I didn't say the innkeep. I didn't say I'm going to the inn. I said I'm going to see Jen. Now, in this particular sense, you assume that Jen was probably part of the inn that the party had been dealing with previously, right? What do you think?
Yeah, I think adding flavor is one of the best ways to kind of make things memorable for your players. You can, like when you go to the inn, it's not just you go to the inn. It's a rundown shack, with some kind of outhouses. The toothless barmaid or whatever, or it's a very refined. It kind of has a smell of perfume. There's bards singing on a table. There's a very attractive blonde looking your way. It makes it stick out as a more memorable place for them.
And guys, in today's society, we have YouTube, so there are you can literally YouTube like tavern conversations, like tavern sounds, and you can give them the sound of like people singing in the background, people talking in the tavern. You can actually use that. Maybe this one has an old hag, that old dirty toothless woman that's always hitting on people. Another thing you can do, guys, to sculpt your cities, your locations, your towns in New Haven is New Haven is built on the brink, the border of the kingdom, and it was meant to be let's say it was meant to be a fort or some type of last stronghold before the wildlands come, and then the Gibberlings are constantly attacking. So maybe weapons are a little bit more expensive here because most of the weapons are sometimes being lost on the front line, but armor we can always go back and get from the dead and stuff. So with maybe the Gibberlings in their crazy raids, if you know what a Gibberling is, the weapons get lost, but they don't really pull the armor off. So you go back and get the armor. So armor may be a little bit cheaper here than in the book standard, but weapons may cost a little more. So, and maybe certain things aren't available, right?
I think that brings up a good point about location, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're talking about where to put New Haven, flavorfully it does matter. If it's right up next to the river, it's probably a bit nicer than if it's out in the sticks by itself. You can kind of determine that there's different tiers of how well established a place will be kind of by its location. If it's up in the mountains, it might be a nice defensible fortress, or if it's out in the plains, it might just be farmlands.
And so to touch on that, so guys, I don't know if anyone watching has ever been in the service industry, but if you have, you know that people who spend more money are typically more welcomed. All right?
Mm-hmm.
So there are a couple of variant ways to do what I'm saying, but you can say that in order to get a long rest, like if you're doing the variant rule where a long rest is a week, not a day, if you're pulling something along those lines, you can say that it takes more time in a lesser room than a better room. But if you break down the room like from peasant to gentry to noble to royal, like and not every inn should carry all 4 rooms. But if I'm an adventurer and I go and I'm willing to spend 8 gold a night, which is insane for a room, I'm probably catching some attention in town. You know what I mean? Like if you go to a bar and you say, well, me and my 9 friends here, we're only going to drink Crown Royal Extended Reserve. Keep the shots coming. This is my credit card. Shots are $20-$30 a shot. You'll probably get a little bit more focus and taken care of than say the guy over there buying $2 beers,
mm-hmm.
right? So people, word, especially, we have to think about in the old days when people weren't watching, there weren't TV, and this is supposed to be like a medieval setting for the most part. People talk. When you see someone coming in town and going to a place that is rarely used because it's so expensive, and you see someone coming in there with a group of adventurers, war-torn adventurers come in, they go to the public bath, get some nice clothes, they go to the Gold Dragon Inn, which is royal rooms only, 10 gold a night, but everything's taken care of, your food, blah blah blah, your if you want women or men, whatever the case, like it's all taken care of, like no one ever goes there because it's so expensive. You're gonna be the talk of the town. And I think in said situation, you should probably get a bonus, a faction with the town. Like you should, charisma checks, at which point you may get an extra +1 or maybe get advantage in certain situations because the town is probably thankful that you're coming in and spending your money here. Right?
They want you there.
Yeah. Versus you come in and you spend one night at the Royal Inn and then you arguably take them to the reeve or the local authority because you think something happened and they have to give you money. Now people think you're kind of a vagabond. You're a swindler, right? But until something along those lines happen, you're the champion of town. You're J.J. Watt in Houston. So what do you think about the different different settings as far as like different cities? You weren't in my game, but when they were in they were in a province called Meridian was a little bit more technologically advanced. I described it very similar to something you would see in like the buildings as far as something think of Assassin's Creed, versus they've also been in villages where there was like next to nothing.
Right.
You know, like there has to be a differentiation. Otherwise, it's, oh cool, I'm in a city. This is what I do, and they just literally handwrite down every time I go to a city. This is what I do, because every city is the exact same. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for inspiration, look no further than history. I mean, just look back in the Middle Ages. You know, Italy was the birth of the Renaissance. It was very prosperous.
Yep.
Whereas, you know, up in like North Germany, it was still pretty primitive, aside from like Lubeck.
Right. Also, guys, you know, like in my Saturday game now, that Corey's a part of, they're in a town now where that, you know, and a lot of their homes and places they've tried to call their home have been destroyed. Different things have happened, some their fault, some not. And they're in a place now that they're actually trying to call it home. Like this city could be their home, and they're doing various things to make this city their home. And so the longer they stay in this city, the more things that happen in this city, the more this city will get fleshed out for them. And they'll learn more and more about it. And so, you know, if you're in a metropolis or a larger city, maybe there's another group of adventurers. Maybe they're rivals. Maybe they're allies. Maybe there's a group of bad guys in there that are adventurers that they have to fight, or politically put down later, right? It's always fun when you're in city and you can't resort to my 5th level spells, my 3rd level cunning action. I have to use my wit. I have to trick them and even blackmail them into leaving the city. You know, I can't just, because if I just murder them, then I'm going to get in trouble too. So, you know, it's always fun when the team has been traveling and different places have been destroyed, and now they find a place that they find home, and they sink their claws into it. Like, this is my home, and they start getting, I don't know if I'd say maternal, or
they get invested in it,
or invested into the into that said location. You'll see that once they start learning of Gart Stonenose, the old retired warrior who was a part of the legendary Heroes of Brave that slew 2 dragons, who's missing an eye, and he's, you know, both the weapon and armor smith. He owns the Dwarven Forge, who has really good weapons and durability and things like that. And, you know, and maybe this town is particular because at Dwarven Forge, Gart Stonenose can make things that can, maybe his weapons can, you know, twice per long rest overcome resistance, or maybe his armor is immune to rusting and like elements because of the
has his own special flair to it.
Yeah, like, you know, in 5th edition we could call this stuff, giving it basic easy properties, not overpowered, masterwork, because there's not really a mechanic for masterwork anymore, except for maybe it costs more, or you can sell it for more. And, you know, even if you don't give it a property, even if you say these are masterwork weapons, they're just ornamentally flavored, they look good, and they're worth more, you can take these weapons, travel down the road, and sell them somewhere else for more, and that's how your party could get started, right? You're a medieval arms dealer, right? So, what do you think?
Yeah, I think kind of giving them their own little unique spin is pretty cool. And like he said, it doesn't have to be anything that's mechanically different. It can just be flavorful. You know, he has this certain design that he puts on all his weapons that stands out, so that when you're walking down the street, people know, oh shit, that's, you know, that's Marco's weapon. Yeah,
that's right. And now, moving forward, guys, let's talk about the same city. New Haven is part of, let's go to Mystara and say it's part of the Republic of Darrican, a merchant land. And so you've never even heard of the Republic of Darrican,
nope.
Have you? Loser. And so, you know, let's say that the lands of Sind are sending ships out to attack it and everything else. But New Haven, being close to the water, as Corey said, favors Pri, the god of the sea, maybe those that favor the god of the sea in this place get a little bit of bonuses. This is a a port for the god Pre, and again, that's just a name I've created off the top of my head. And let's say that if I created my character in this game, and we end up making it to the city of New Haven, and I actually worship Pre, I should feel strong here. I should be strong here. It's like being a Christian in Jerusalem, or you know what I mean. So the same thing goes. If I worship Cord, which is a Dungeons and Dragons god. If I worship Cord, and I'm in the same city where Pre is favored, and I shouldn't feel one way or the other. But if I'm in the Bandit Kingdoms in Greyhawk, and I use as the domain ruler as a god, and I worship Pre or Cord, well, my powers should almost feel suppressed. So little things like that, guys, can make. And I'm not telling you that if you're in a province where your god isn't favored, that you should just have your powers removed. But I am saying that the further that you adventure away from, you should feel stronger. You should feel more potent in those areas, almost as if it's your lair, your domain. I'm not speaking mechanically. I'm speaking flavorfully. And if you want to give, if you worship Cord, and you were trying to hold a city that had a Temple of Cord, I would give you some bonuses. You're trying to protect one of his holy, and I don't mean just a normal church. I mean like a major site. I would give you bonuses because you're trying to protect your god's religious site, right? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's something that is often overlooked, is that a lot of people try and put their modern take onto what is in the game world, but in most of these game worlds, it's the gods are real. They do reward their followers. They do bless their followers. They do smite those who are against them.
Defy them.
Yeah. So having stuff like that from the different gods is definitely another way to make your stuff unique. And I think this should be fairly common in every game. Honestly, it's something that when the gods are real, you should be seeing it, I think.
One of the most popular times in Forgotten Realms, the flagship for Dungeons and Dragons, was the Time of Troubles. And the best way I can explain the Time of Troubles is, if you ever watched Xena or Hercules as a kid, go back and watch them if you didn't. Xena was actually cooler than Hercules. But if you never watched them, or if you ever read anything on the old Greek, the Greek gods, how the Greek gods literally almost walked amongst the mortals. It was very common, they walked amongst them as if they were just normal people. That's almost what the Time of Troubles was like, and that's almost how Forgotten Realms was for many, many years. And so maybe that's the kind of world you want. And what we're telling you to do to sculpt your world is solely based on what your world is. Like if your world is closer to Forgotten Realms, maybe there are a few more, level 14 magic users walking around, because level 14 is not that potent. They're not level 75 yet. And I'm exaggerating. I'm saying Forgotten Realms is significantly stronger than like Greyhawk or Dragonlance or something like that. So, you probably won't have those level 14s walking around as often in Dragonlance as you would Forgotten Realms. So it really depends on your world as far as that goes. And it's okay to have known NPCs, but when you make up a known magic user, let's say you have a magic user that's pivotal to your story named Gorion. Gorion doesn't have to be a level 14 druid. He can be a 14 hit die caster with spells from anywhere, and he can have fighter abilities. You can design him as a creature. He doesn't have to be classed. And for you players out there, if you decide to attack this guy who's supposed to help you, and he has 4 concentrations up, as we've said this before, he's not limited to the laws of class. So, and for you DMs out there, that doesn't mean that you can just ignore the basic rules because you're mad that these guys did something you didn't want them to do. You can't be like, well, I'm casting 4 fireballs because that's what he does. Be reasonable.
Right.
Right. And because you want it to be fun for the players if that's what they want to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when designing anything, you should kind of create something that's challenging but beatable, right? You don't want to just go, well, they shouldn't have attacked him.
Right.
So he's just gonna one-shot everything at the end.
And I'm gonna tell you guys something, and I'm gonna play a trick on you. I'm gonna play a trick on everyone out there, and if you don't have a history in D&D, this may not work for you. But if you do have a history in D&D, the trick should work on you. If I tell you, let's imagine for a minute that I'm DMing for everyone out there. All you guys out there in my group, I got my DM screen here, and I'm rolling 4s, but I'm telling you they're 20s. I'm hitting you and critting you. No, and I say you come across a small mountainside or hillside, and the sun has just set, and coming up across the other side, you see humanoids walking, and on the other side, you see Gareth Purpleheart. None of you know who Gareth Purpleheart is. You didn't feel anything, right? So what? Who's Gareth Purpleheart? Is he a human? Now, I need to describe him. What race is he? What does he look like? Right? Mm-hmm. How does that change if you're on the same hillside? The sun has just set. The last light from day has ended. And there on the other side, you see Dritz Duerden and his trusty companion coming forward. You know who Dritz Duerden is. So, Dritz Duerden is the legendary renegade drow elf that, made Forgotten Realms that 1v1s Dracoliches. Or if I said, you see Tiamat. That almost brings chills to you guys who know who Tiamat is. Because you know who they are. And so you have to make sure that your party is aware of you have to make sure that your party's aware of your bad guys and that everyone knows what's going on. And we're going to get into the commitment issue in a little bit. Talking about what we're talking about right now, from the DM's perspective, you have to give your players and characters the reason to play something other than a name and stats on a piece of paper. You have to give them something to talk about. Maybe my father was Gart Stonenose's former ally, but my father died early on in their adventuring days together, and Gart continued on and joined another group, and so Gart's always kind of had a soft spot for me. So when he can, he helps me out, but he always requires me to do shit for him. So when the party's doing stuff around town, I'm out run errands and stuff because he feels like he's, got freedom over me to, dominion over me to do stuff like that. If I just say, oh, I used to be a fighter, I used to be in the guard, and when my time in the local guard ended, I became an adventurer. That can be the player's fault, but it can be the DM's fault. The DM has to set the setting for the player to build a game, build a backstory to where it can incorporate, others. Maybe you were an orc who was captured, and you heard the stories of Dritz Duerden and how he threw away and turned on his own people, and how he turned away from the natural dark ways of his own people, and he feels like in his raging blood, he's grew up hearing these stories, so he can do that too. So, but if I don't give you that, if I don't give you anything, then what does he have to go on, right? Mm-hmm. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
What else would you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of just all about, and it doesn't have to be a villain, as we kind of said before. It can be anybody. You know, if you want your notable NPCs to be notable, you have to do something to make them so. You know, you have to imprint them in the players' minds so that they'll remember them because they meet tons of NPCs.
You have to ask yourself, what makes this location, not just a city, what makes this location different from the other location? And we're going to bleed into some pretty exciting stuff, new news from 5th edition, the Companion's Guide for Elemental Evil's out. Good job, good work, Wizards, good work. And we're gonna get into that in just a minute. And I'm gonna show you how we're gonna bleed into that. But talking about things need to make sense, guys. So if I'm in a land that a long time ago was overrun by elves, and the elves scourged the land, got rid of the people, cutting down the forest and all this other stuff, and the campaign begins there, and I'm not playing an elf, gotta be a reason, right? I'm not gonna just say I'm playing a Goliath. Well, why is there a Goliath in with all these elves? There can be a reason, but there needs to be a reason.
The reason is the +2 strength, and
yeah. Yeah, because I'm going barbarian, I need the +2 strength. No, that's not a reason. And we're going to get into that in just a minute. But talking about building your setting, guys, it's not bad to lay down restrictions in your setting when you have people creating characters and backstories, because if you ask me, can I play a Warforged? And I say, in the area in which you're going, there are no Warforged. So there literally would not be one. So what if I come up with a clever backstory? It's a DM thing. DM thinks he can come up with a clever backstory based on the story setting. Fine. But if you say there's a race of elves and a race of orcs, and they're sworn enemies, and you're starting where the race of orcs are, you can't really play one of the other elves, can you? Right?
No.
Assuming they kill on sight, assuming that they don't need them for anything, you can't say, well, my guy was using, I'm a traitor to my own people, and I'm going to be used as a scout. What if they don't want that? What if the orcs don't use that? They don't trust you. There's no real reason, so now you're just trying to be problematic. But continuing to touch base on races and things like that, bleeding into the campaigns guide, they've brought back a couple of new races: the Ganassi, the Goliath, the Deep Gnome, and the talk of the town, the Aarakocras. What do you Corey? From before we get to the proper perspective, let's hear your perspective on the new races.
Okay, I guess we'll go in order here. So the Aarakocras have fly speed, and that's a big issue for a lot of people. A lot of people complain that that's overpowered. Blah blah blah. That's literally all they get. I mean, they get fly speed and a D4 unarmed attacks. And they can't wear medium or heavy armor while flying, so they're basically restricted to being light armor classes like rogues or monks, or being a monk would be kind of redundant because their unarmed strikes would override that. But fly speed is powerful at level 1, 2, 3. The further you get into the game, the less powerful it becomes because people have greater ranges. And especially now, they've actually introduced a spell that grounds flying creatures, and it's a I think it's a 2nd level spell, so it's not that far off into the distance that flying becomes less potent. But it is potent at level 1. I'll give you that. But level 1 is a session, 2 sessions. Not a game breaker for me. I think it's fairly balanced. Then you go on to Deep Gnomes. They're kind of like the more caster gnome people. They get like imp bonuses, and they even have like an optional feat for them that they can get, which allows them at will spells and like once per day spells for like hiding and stuff. And they have superior dark vision. I don't think there's a rule for something like that was in the previous editions. I think you said was people who have like greater dark vision can't see in the light, like the drow and stuff.
Light sensitivity.
Like light sensitivity. They'd have light sensitivity, and they'd be at like disadvantage for everything in the daylight. That rule's not there for them. Might be there for the drow though.
It is.
Yeah. So they have that unrestricted. They can go out in daylight, just fine. Moving on, there's the Goliath, big giant dudes from the mountains and stuff. They're
half giants.
Yeah, they're half giants. They're categorically medium sized, but they're kind of treated as large. They get damage reduction like once per day. They're pretty cool, kind of overall. I think they're overall, built around, being a frontliner, obviously, and I think they're pretty well balanced for that. Well,
that carrying capacity,
yeah. They can make great looters, I guess.
Taking those guys to New Orleans.
And then you have, one of the classic Ganassi's, the plain touch. And they have like the 4 elements. The Ganassi are basically plain touch from each different element, and each one has its own little flavor that makes them beneficial to being a certain type of playstyle, like frontline, mage, cleric, roguish type. The fire ones has a really interesting ability. It's dark vision, but it's kind of not dark vision because they can just see in darkness, which is pretty. Like there's no real sight restriction to them. They just see in darkness, with shades of red, and they have fire resistance, which was one of the best things from the tiefling ratios. I think. I think they're like overall. I think I want to say the fire Ganassi are really powerful.
Pretty the strong one. Pretty the strongest one.
Yeah, the water one's cool because they can breathe, underwater and above water, and they have swim speed. It's a little bit more situational.
I'm actually glad you said that about the Fire Ganassi, and I'm going to tell you why. So before the show started, I just took some notes on my phone about the new races just to make sure I had them in front of me, and I'm going to tell you why the Aarakocra is not overpowered. One of the biggest things. Are we good?
Yeah.
Good to go? Alright. One of the biggest things, and I'm going to start with the Aarakocra. It's +2 dex, +1 wisdom, speed 25, fly 50. You can wear medium or heavy armor when flying, unarmed strike. 1d4 strike, slashing hit. So, compared to, and I'm gonna say this fast, the +2 int, dex 1 of the deep gnome, superior dark vision, advantage on int, wisdom, charisma saves against magic, advantage on stealth and rocky terrain, optional feat that does lots of different magic stuff. Comparing the Aarakocra to the deep gnome, in a game from 1 to 20, you really think fly is that effective? I mean, your survivability, your chance to escape a TPK, sure, you get away, right? That doesn't. I can see an Aarakocra rogue being pretty powerful because I can fly 150 feet around using cunning action.
Or a warlock.
Yeah, but an Aarakocra can fly 50. So if I fly 50 on my move, I take my standard to fly 50, and then I use my cunning action, my bonus to fly another 50. I can go 150, but that second level spell grounds flying creatures up to what,
300 away? Yeah.
300 away. So you need a double move, and you're still in range of this second level spell that grounds flying creatures. Now your speed's 25. So now playing devil's advocate about the Aarakocra, they are not currently allowed to be played in Adventure League. Adventure League is focused on lower levels, I believe, up to around 8th or 9th. And I can see where the Aarakocra could be strong in just a base combat game. You just fly up and shoot down against people who don't have magic, that kind of magic.
Mm-hmm.
I can see that being an issue. But the Aarakocra, it's strong low level. So would a Goliath barbarian would be strong low level, right? I mean, or a half orc barbarian is going to be strong low level. So I don't see the Aarakocra being more overwhelming to a dungeon master than a Goliath barbarian at first level.
Right, and how effective is your fly speed going to be when you're dungeon delving? Like, when you're in a room with 10 feet tall ceilings. How good is your fly speed?
So there's a pit. There's a 15-foot pit, and 4 PCs have to make jump checks, and you don't. Cool. Is that really worth all the other stuff that these other races get? I don't think so. I don't. If anything, the Aarakocra is underpowered. And I understand why they did it, because fly is pretty impressive. But to talk about the origins of the Aarakocra is one of my favorite races. And in the Saturday game before Companion's Guide came out, they had ran into Aarakocras before. And the reason I like Aarakocras is because they're a humanoid race. They're usually lawful good. And they've never really been a playable race until 4th edition. I mean, I think they're obvious. I'm sure that there's an add-on book in 3rd that says you can play an Aarakocra. They start at level 40 or something. 3rd edition was crazy, but the Aarakocra is a really cool thing. You always hear human, elf, dwarf, half elf. The Aarakocras are kind of fun. They're different. And talking about being, sculpting your game. Guys, your first encounters as a DM should not always be orcs, kobolds, and goblins. Like, there's other stuff in the book. You can also make up stuff, look up stuff, look up fantasy creatures. What I mean? Put something together. You can also make it humanoids. I'm real big on them fighting other humanoids like humans and tieflings, because that conflicts, civilized conflicts happen. But moving on from the Aarakocra, we're going to go to the Goliath. Big fan of the Goliath, always have been. Under the name Goliath, it's relatively a new race from 4th edition, but the idea has been around for a long time. One thing I like about the Goliath and the way they made it is how they gave it natural proficiency athletics. I don't know if there's any other race that currently gives you proficiency in skills. I'm sure that there's things that give you bonuses or stuff, but giving you proficiency in athletics is unique. You can use your reaction to use damage reduction, 1d12 plus con to reduce damage. You get it back on a short rest. You count as one size larger when dealing with carrying. This is a problem. The reason I say this is a problem with the Goliath is because some of you DMs out there don't really worry about carrying. You just let people kind of carry whatever. So if you don't play with carrying, you need to either allow them the DR, give them that ×2, like let them use it twice per short rest. You kind of got to give them something in exchange if carrying is not a big deal for you. Acclimated to higher locations, they're strong against cold, things like that. Again, if you don't use weather, if you don't use terrain, and you don't use surroundings and environment to affect your players, this doesn't help the Goliath. So you're taking away racial abilities by giving it universally to everyone. You need to give them something in place of that. I like it the way it is because I use those things. But I think that if you're not going to use those things, make sure to give them something equivalent, specific to your game. Right? We're going to go to Deep Gnome. I use them with the Aarakocra, but we're going to go through it again, just like Corey said. You have superior dark vision. That's impressive. If you used lighting at all. The advantage on stealth and rocky terrain. Advantage in wisdom, charisma saves against magic. To me, that's pretty strong.
Yeah.
And then given if you're for short we'll call it Svim magic. Optional feat allows you to cast non-detection on self at will. As much as you want. Once per long rest, you can use blindness, deafness, or blur, or disguise self.
That's each. by the way. That's not you pick one and then it goes on cooldown. It's one each of those.
Is it really?
Yeah.
So to me, that's a bit powerful. To me, the Deep Gnome surpasses the Aarakocra, right? Because at first level, maybe the Aarakocra is strong with fly. Don't think so at third level beyond. Second level's in between. Third, fourth level, the Aarakocra's fly speed is not all that impressive anymore. Because I can do that. I can cast fly on my warrior here, and he's in full plate. Now what? So, and my other wizard casts haste on him, so we're catching you. So you're not getting away.
I think it adds tactical diversity. It does make you need to adjust your tactics for how you approach the combat. You can't just all my melee guys can't reach them, so now I'm fucked. I'm just gonna sit here.
It's funny.
You have to actually think about how to combat their strengths.
And it's funny you say that, and I'm going to continue to the Ganassi in just a minute, but it's funny you say that because a long time ago in 4th edition, we had an encounter, and I don't know if I brought this up on this show yet or not. They encountered some wyverns in the mountains, and they knew these mountains were known for having wyverns. They knew, and they went there. And 4th edition was very min-maxy. A lot of people, even if you didn't min-max, the character builder almost made you, right? And so, and they built it that way. And so, they encountered these wyverns that were flying, and the wyverns were grabbing rocks and just launching rocks at them, right? These wyverns are known; they know these mountains. Why would they just go fly down and sit next to them so they could get fucking banged on? Doesn't make any sense. They're just gonna knock rocks on you until you get hurt, and they're gonna come in for the kill, right? And the players ran into a cave, and they're like, "This isn't fair. I can't hit them because, all my focus and all my bonuses go into attacking with falchion. What's your alternate weapon? What's your ranged weapon? I don't have one. On your sheet it says melee range. Yeah, but I didn't get one. Whose fault is that? Not my fault. I didn't tell you couldn't get ranged. And so it does build diversity when you have to do things like that. And talking about sculpting campaigns, and we're going through races, guys, it's important that you use these races in locations to where it makes sense. Because it may not make a big deal at first. Oh, you're in a city and you can play any race you want that's playable. It may not make a big deal at first, but it makes a big deal later when you go to places where these other races exist that you've never seen them before. It should make a big deal. Like, man, I've never seen a deep gnome. You know what I mean? Like, so.
But you've never seen a deep Aarakocra.
Deep Aarakocra. So, so you want to make sure that you're sculpting your setting properly, and not just kind of throwing everything in the mix and just letting everyone play whatever they want.
And that kind of goes in cumulatively with the general consensus of what we're saying is, like, when you're creating your world, you have to understand that from a player's perspective, the players will impart their knowledge of the real world into the game world unless you tell them otherwise. So you can say, oh, well, you can't, well, there's magic in this world, so anything's possible. Well, you didn't tell me anything was possible.
Right.
Because they're grounded in what the real world allows. So you have to make specific, knowledge to the players about what's different than the real world, I think. And if there's deep gnomes, up in the
mountains.
In the mountains, there needs to be reasons why.
Mm-hmm. Why are they there? Are they deep in the caverns? Why? Well, because the spiders, the great spiders of the moving forest, drove them out years ago.
Yeah. So basically, what I'm saying is, don't fall back to anything's possible because they can use magic. You have to understand that this is out of character. From a player's perspective, they're going to do that. That's just psychology. You have to, as a DM, you have to be able to to understand that they're going to do that, and you have to take account into that when you're designing stuff.
Yeah, you have to. It's like anything else, right? Like if someone told me that I was gonna go to class, I was gonna go to 4 different classes and start college again tomorrow, like for something else, and they said, we just want to see how good you do. We're not going to tell you the classes you're going to be in, but you're going to be in a school environment. You're going to get a backpack, you're going to get some notebook paper, you're going to get a calculator, right? Because in the real world, in order to succeed in school, I need to be able to take notes. I need room for my textbooks. I need a calculator, right? Like these are the rules that apply to classroom environments. So that's what I'm going to bring to the table,
right?
And I don't know any better. I'm not going to come to the table.
We didn't bring your microscope today. What the hell?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say, well, I brought my novel, like, in a classroom environment. I thought I'd read. It doesn't make any sense. Why would you read? Cool, bring it. Maybe you're doing a book report on it, but you still need your essentials, right? And for me to finish up on the new races, we're going to go to Ganassi. For those of you who don't know, most of my main characters in my novels are actually Ganassi, the offspring of the main character are Ganassi. Funny thing about Ganassi, historically, and I don't know if it's still this way. So, a lot of times when you make a half elf, you think that the mother and father are human and elf. It could be human and half elf. It could be
half elf and half elf.
Half elf and half elf. It could be half elf and gnome. It could be elf and gnome. It's essentially telling you that elf is the dominant trait, same as orc. Okay? Tiefling is different. If you have an offspring with a tiefling, the offspring is tiefling, right? And so if you have infernal blood, you're infernal, or abyssal blood, you're a tiefling. Ganassi is like tiefling. If you have Ganassi blood, you're Ganassi.
Right.
There are no half Ganassis. Either you have elemental blood or you don't. Right? So when we get to Ganassi, and that's just a free piece of information for you, they all get con +2, and for personal,
which is universally awesome no matter what class you're playing.
Yeah, so far I can play anything. So con's good anywhere, but Ganassi are one of my favorite races. Ganassi are absolutely one of my favorite races. So with air, we get Dex 1, holds breath indefinitely, and you can cast Levitate on a long rest. That's not bad. It's not bad at all. Between Air Ganassi and Air Kraka, Air Ganassi. I'm taking Air Ganassi. I can cast Levitate. I can hold my breath indefinitely. Right? I got a 2 con and a 1 dex. I'm okay there. Earth, you got a strength 1. You can move across difficult terrain made of earth or stone without extra movement. Pass without trace once per long rest. It's not bad either. That's and guys, of course I'm speaking mechanically, and we're not really mechanical players, but we're trying to give you the rundown here. Fire. Corey's version of Corey's theory is the fire Ganassi is the strongest of the new races, right?
Yeah,
so
I'd say so.
So, and let's figure out why he said that. You get an int modifier 1, of course, goes with your con modifier of 2. You can see in dim light, 60 feet, as bright as darkness, as bright as in darkness as if in dim. All things are in shades of red. Resistance fire. Produce flame cantrip. 3rd level. Now, the produce flame cantrip is okay. It's not as impressive because you can already see in darkness.
Right.
Usually, but maybe I'm not sure about 5th edition. Maybe you can start fires or something with produce flame. 3rd level, once you hit 3rd, you can cast Burning Hands once per long rest. That's impressive.
Yeah.
That's not bad at all. and I have to agree with Corey that between the Deep Gnome and the Fire Ganassi are your 2 strongest as far as what's the most what's the most potent thing here?
Yeah, what's the most universally useful stuff in a standard campaign?
So if you were going to be in 5 random campaigns and you didn't know what the campaigns were, and you were going to pick a race, right, to go with a class, what race could I pick that I think would be universally strong? Right? I'm saying Fire Ganassi, Deep Gnome are the top 2, in my opinion. Now that's not class, that's just race. As far as the new companions guide races go, in the water we added wisdom to 1, resistance acid, makes sense, water acid. You can breathe air and water. And you swim 30. You know the shape water cantrip. At 3rd level, you can create or destroy water as a 2nd level once per long rest. That's pretty utility. You can get away, but if you're in an area where there's not a lot of water, the water Ganassi is almost null and void.
But being a cleric is awesome for that. Wearing full plate, and get dropped into the water and just swim to safety.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in an area where there's, there is water, there isn't water, maybe you hit you hit, maybe you take a few ships here and there.
Yeah, so I guess the easiest way to say it is that there's tiers of usefulness, right? Universally, yes. Fire resistance is amazing. Most spells are fire. Yeah. It's awesome everywhere. Swim speed, fly speed are situational. You're not always going to be able to fly. You're not always going to be able to swim. It depends.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, for example, I don't know how the new one's going to look, but I'm willing to bet that the Eric Croc is not as impressive as you guys are going to think in the Temple of Elemental Evil, because you're probably going to be in a temple, right? So, like, your flying is going to be limited at... You may be able to fly up, but your flying's going to be limited at best. Mm-hmm. But they are saying in Adventure League, which is the official gaming group or whatever, like the official that Aarakocras are not a playable race. So I'm kind of thrown as to why they are making it a playable race, but then not letting anyone play it in Adventure League. And I don't have an answer for you, other than the standard modules and standard encounters are built alongside are built in a manner in which it favors Aarakocra at low level. That's all I can tell you. But universally, if I'm going to join a game and I don't know the DM, I don't know the game, and I don't know the story, and I'm playing for power or I'm playing for utility and I'm not playing for flavor, I don't think Aarakocra would be my number 1 pick.
So, ranking all the races that are released, what's your top? Let's say your top 5.
Core as well?
Yep.
Half Elf is your master race. That is. Half Elf is your master race. Top 5?
Yeah, we can go 5. So, number 1, Half Elf.
Mm-hmm. Counting the human variant?
Yeah.
Human variant. Human variant, if you can choose the human variant number 1, Half Elf number 2. No, those are...
Tied.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
Tied for 1 and 2.
Yeah, it's tied for 1 and 2. Number 3, I'd say, and I say this because it's what I've seen. The half orc, that ability not to get dropped to 0 is more impressive than it sounds. It is amazingly impressive. I've seen a group not get TPK'd because of that ability, right? Mm-hmm. So the half, so number 1, number 2, 3 being the Fire Ganassi.
Okay.
4 being the Deep Gnome, 5 being the half orc. But in saying that, I think the dwarf is pretty impressive. There's a couple of things here or there. Man, it really depends on your game. I really like the new races. I don't think they're overpowered. I don't think there's anything in the new Companions Guide that shuts the half elf down. If we take the human variant out of there and we just use the basics, there's not one race that you can look at and go, this race blows the half elf out the water. For some reason, half elves are the master race in 5th edition. I don't know why they get everything under the sun, but they do. And
so, what makes you believe that they're so strong?
You know, I have a natural distaste for elves. And the reason I have a natural distaste for them is that in the older editions, elves got everything. Like in 2nd edition, like elves got a +1 with anything they used except a two-handed weapon or two-handed melee weapon. So they live longer, and if your DM didn't play with level restrictions, there was virtually no reason not to play one. But then in 3rd edition, when humans got bonus feats and all this other stuff, all these old elven players are now playing humans. So moving to the half elf, they get dark vision. They can put their stats in certain whatever race or stat they want. They just universally, if you were going to choose a race, like if you were going to play a fighter, right? If you were going to play a fighter and you didn't know the DM, you didn't know the story, and you got to choose your race, there's no reason not to choose half elf. There's a couple of things, and I say that less is more. That you notice that the Deep Gnome, the Fire, and the Fire Ganassi are in my top 5, but if you notice, my half elf, my human variant, and half orc are all core. So 3 of the 5 that I chose were core, which is important because historically, in D&D games and in other games, the more stuff that gets released, the stronger it becomes. And I don't think they did that this time. I think the new races are on par with the old ones. And I think that that's important. And in saying that, let me conclude that before you allow any race, be it Drow to Aarakocra, make sure that it's fundamentally sound for your setting, right?
Yeah, it needs to be, thematically it needs to make sense why they're in the world.
Yeah, it needs to fundamentally be sound for your your game. And so, I can argue that having a Goliath barbarian, I think it's the bear totem, where you can carry double your capacity at a certain level, and your capacity is large as a Goliath. I can see that being that alone can put you in the top 3 races if your DM is restrictive on carrying and he doesn't just hand out bags of holding. In my game, it's been going on almost 2 years, never given out a bag of holding. Not one time.
Well, there's that 10-pound bag of holding.
Oh, for Alaris?
Yeah.
Yeah, for Erica. She holds her like books of knowledge and wisdom in this little thing.
No. There was one that you gave my guy that I gave her.
Oh, the 10-pounder. Yeah. Yeah. So but it's not. It doesn't change the fact that they still have to work on their carrying stuff, right? So the Goliath can be great for muling. The Goliath is overly impressive in certain aspects, but again, it's DM situational, right? If you're holding 42 swords, and your DM doesn't really care because you're just going to take them back to town, then it's a useless ability. It's a useless ability. So it's hard for me to say whether the Goliath is that impressive. In my game, the Goliath would be up here.
Yeah, and that goes again with the tiers of stuff. Like when you're looking at stuff, you can say without knowing the DM, this is universally awesome. Mm-hmm. And then you start getting into that second tier stuff where this is situationally amazing.
So when we say things, guys, when we're answering questions like top races, we're talking on a universal platform.
Right.
So now that you heard my 5, let's hear your
5. As I've said, I think fire resistance is strong, so I'd actually rank Fire Ganassi number 1.
Ganassi!
Human variant number 2, Tiefling number 3, Half Elf number 4, number 5, Halfling.
And that's cool because ours are worlds different. Ours are worlds different, and tieflings are neat. Tieflings are neat, and one of the reasons I didn't actually consider in tieflings, I like tieflings. The thing is with tieflings, if you're speaking universally, they are innately supposed to be looked down upon, so they can have a hard time in town most of the time. One of the races I think they dropped the ball on is Dragonborn. They get a breath weapon, but I don't understand why elves get dark vision and Dragonborn don't.
Right. And like the Dragonborn, I think they are the weakest race. They don't have dark vision. Their breath weapon does not scale. It's okay at early levels, but like past level 5, you're not even going to use it.
I think beyond my initial plan here, and this is just me, is I'm going to, when my current D&D 5th edition games end, because my games have been going since before Core started, they were in beta, I'm going to modify elves to where they only get dark vision in one environment. They're going to choose an environment. Because I especially don't think half elves should get it. Maybe as you roll a 30% chance you get it as a half elf. I don't understand how a half elf gets dark vision, but a dragonborn doesn't. That's insane. Red dragons who live in caves, but you give it to dwarves because they live in caves, right? Dwarves have like this natural stone cutting ability, like they're natural cave dwellers, so they should get dark vision. But Dragonborns don't. And the reason why they didn't give it to Dragonborn, I can tell you, it is very clear cut. They want certain races to not have dark vision, and they more people favor elves than Dragonborn, so they want elves to be strong. So that's probably why they gave it to elves and not a Dragonborn. That's the end of it. You can say that Dragonborn are more sophisticated these days, and like they don't really have countries of their own for the most part. So they just as far as a race goes, they're a little bit like humans with a breath weapon or something. But I don't think I think they dropped the ball on the Dragonborn. At least give them natural AC, something. And I'm not a power gamer. I don't like giving the players and stuff everything, but compared to the other races, I just think they dropped the ball on the Dragonborn, right?
Mm-hmm. I'd even say, that's fine. Don't give them dark vision. Give them blind sight 10 with regular vision.
The half dragon gets blind sight.
Yeah, and dark vision.
And why wouldn't you give at least blind sight? Something, right? So moving on from the races and making sure that you have them in the right place. So far, guys, we got a little less than 30 minutes left, and
real quick, what do you think of just to kind of round out Elemental Evil? What do you think of the spells? Have you read it? Have you gotten through them?
I have. I think it's funny how they only added certain spell types, like wizard or whatever. Like they only added. There's certain types of casters who don't have any new. There are no new spells in there yet.
Right.
I like the spells. I think they're fair, and I think that they've grounded out and neutralized everything they've put, so it keeps everything kind of balanced. I think the Companion's Guide is fantastic. If you go to Miniature Market right now, they have a sale on miniatures from Elemental Evil that just came out. I just dropped a little bit of money on it. Most importantly, let's remember that when playing with Companion's Guide, this was a Companion's Guide to Elemental Evil. So if this group, this game, these races do not apply to your world, you don't need to use them, right? So that goes with any.
And as a player, it should be assumed that that's not included unless the DM says otherwise.
Correct.
This is an optional rule book. Go with core unless the DM says otherwise. Right. Don't go ahead and make your Eric Kraka unless the DM says that he's using the Elemental Evil guide.
And touching on that, guys, so from a DM's perspective, if I'm not playing in Eberron. I'm not playing in Forgotten Realms. Does that mean I won't use the stat block for Warforged? Does that mean I won't use the stat block for Drow? No, I mean, I may use them. They may come in handy as a unique elf that's never been seen before. I'm not going to call them Drow. I'm going to call them something else. And they're going to be a little bit different, and they're not going to worship Loth, So you can still use the stat blocks, guys, even if you don't use the origin. So, but if you do plan on using Drow, and say Drow are not in your world, make sure that you have an origin for them. So to conclude, guys, I want to touch on something that was kind of we were recently affected with. I didn't actually get a chance to talk to Corey about it beforehand, so I hope he doesn't, get mad at me. But because I'd lose. No, I wouldn't succeed. But anyway, so let's talk about one of the most important parts about sculpting your game, commitment. When I talk about you sculpting your game, I'm telling you what, outside of your game, as a DM, you are putting in time, you're putting in effort to sculpt this game, to make it different, to make it unique. Okay? That's what I'm telling you to do, right? You're going to be putting in more time than your players, which is accepted. So that's, as a DM, you know that you're going to put in more time than your players. So make sure that you are with players that are willing to put in the required amount of time. And what I mean by that, guys, is, and this is going to sound crazy, like we're zealots for D&D, and it's not the case, but D&D almost died, tabletop gaming almost died in the 90s when the golden age, as he puts it, of computer games came out. And when all this online gaming started and got popular, it almost killed tabletop gaming. And guys, if you guys are gonna play every other Sunday, say your gaming is every other Sunday from noon to 7, guys, things are gonna come up to where you want to take off from your game and go do other stuff, right? If you have to work, that's cool. If something comes up that's an emergency, that's cool. But if your buddy's in town, or if, I promised my friend I'd go watch a movie, I was going to take this session off. Guys, that's part of being part of a team. As a pro fighter and coach, I don't always want to go to the gym, but I go, especially when my other guys need help, because when I'm going to need help, I'm going to expect them to go whether they want to or not. And that's part of the teamwork, right? Part of the teamwork is outside of the game, showing up when you don't want to, losing other things. In our Saturday game, we've all given up, lots of stuff. But the reason why is because if you start, you'll set a precedent. If you're like, well, I'm not going to be here, bro. Can you play Drayden for me? Well, then the next game or 2 games later, and Gareth Purpleheart appears, and I'm like, who's that? Oh, that's the guy that burned your house down. Oh, so I hate him? Okay, cool. It's not the same as when I was there when this guy did all these bad things. And as a player, I expect you to represent your character on the field as often as possible, and I have 8 players, and most of them are original. We've been playing almost 2 years, and we've made every scheduled session, and our absences are dismal. I mean, we're in the high 90% as far as people, being there. And, people aren't on their phone looking around, people know what's going on. So commitment and focus, we talk about this almost every episode. It's highly important, guys. Like, it's highly important. And if you don't feel like you can give the same commitment and focus, whatever it may be, as everyone else, you're probably in the wrong game, and you're probably bringing the game down. Do everyone a favor and quit. Because, I promise you, in my Saturday game, I could kill off, or I could fire 6 players, so to speak. I could keep, Corey and maybe one other one, and the 2 of them could run the whole group, and they would be much more effective. Because some players are better than others, but that's not what the game's about, right? The game's not about, can you run my character because I want to go get drunk on Sunday Fun Day. The game's about you've made this commitment. You know, it's part of teamwork. And if something comes up and you have to work, we understand that. If something comes up and you're sick and you don't want to get everyone else sick, we understand that. If your friend that you haven't seen in 20 years comes in town, yeah, I guess we understand that. Bring them with you, whatever. But you know, the point is, guys, if you play, you know, as adults, you all have conflicting schedules and things like that, and you try to get together to do the best you can. If your DM can't make it, I still recommend everyone get together and do a one-off or something, because you want to set that precedent that that's what you do, and that time in the calendar is blocked off. Because if you start saying, oh, well, this guy didn't make it, so we quit, or we didn't play this game, it's just going to be a downward spiral, and it's eventually going to unravel your game, or people are going to not care about what's going on. They're not going to know, and you're constantly going to be reminding people and educating people on what they missed, and it becomes more of a cluster than it's really worth at this point. Do you have anything to say about that?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. You know, if you do, you know, again, if you do need to take off for whatever reason, contact your DM, let them know.
Host and DM both need to know, right? So, and if you can, contact everyone else in your game. Like, say, hey guys, mass text again, 2015. You know, it's not only by home phone. You have to call each person. You can literally send a mass text to everyone in your game. Guys, I can't make it on this day, or I'm going to be late on this day. You know, and don't assume someone else did it for you, right? Like if we all work together and you're my manager and Corey and I are both going to take off on Friday, and I tell Corey, hey, I talked to the manager, I told him we're taking off on Friday, bro. I'm willing to bet the manager still expects to hear from Corey, right? I'm willing to bet that the manager's not going to okay him not being there because I said we both plan on taking off on Friday, right? So, and that's in anything you do. So have some courtesy and respect there. Let us know what you think of the races. Let us know what you think of the Eric Crockett and why we're wrong, and how it's so overpowered, and how Fly 50 as a cunning action rogue is just brutal. And I know that there's going to be one or two people saying, well, I take 2 levels here and 3 levels here, and I get this template by 6th level. I'm sure that if you focus on breaking the Eric Crockett, you can.
As with any class or race.
As with any race. I bet, and I'm willing to bet, that your broken Eric Crockett would not hold up to Corey's broken Fire Ganassi if he chose to build one. So that's a challenge. That's a challenge. If you think you can build an Eric Crockett, and when I don't mean 1v1, I mean, because D&D's not built for that. I mean, if I put your Eric Crockett in the same party as, if I put a fighter, a thief, a cleric, and a wizard on the board, and whichever race or whichever class your Eric Crockett was, I replaced. So if you chose barbarian, I take the fighter off the board. If you chose cleric, I take the cleric off the board. And everything, all the other 3 are humans. I promise you that Corey could build a Fire Ganassi that would be more more universal and more successful in a universal surrounding than you could build an Eric Crockett. Like, I'd put money on it. So, because your fly speed gets grounded with the new spell, his fire resistance is still there. You know, it doesn't go away. So think about that. Let us know what you think about why Adventure League. Why is Adventure League not allowing you to play Eric Crockett, but they're allowing you to play Fire Ganassi? Why are they allowing you to play Team Gnomes? And what would you do in a setting where the DM isn't too worried about carrying capacity, and you're playing a Goliath? Do you feel like that's fair? Do you feel like it's fair that he doesn't play with carrying capacity, and that's one of your strongest attributes, like the fact that you can be a mule? I think that
it's also as you said before, that's a major barbarian ability too, double carrying capacity.
Yeah. So I mean, if your DM isn't playing with carrying capacity, that's a huge deal. If your DM isn't playing with environmental issues, that's a huge deal, right? Like, Some of those races I wouldn't play in Adventure League simply because I don't know of any. I've never heard of anyone saying, "Man, we would have made it, but we got affected by cold." They put encounters on the board and fight each other. So some of those things are meant for home games, not Adventure League games. Maybe the Aircroc is one of them. But that's pretty much that's pretty much it, guys. You have anything?
No. I think Elemental Evil did a good job of adding spell diversity. As he said that a lot of classes didn't get any love in regards to new stuff. But a lot of the classes that did get that stuff did need it. There's a lot more control, I would say, with those spells as opposed to core. And core is just everything does damage almost.
Yeah.
And with this, it adds a lot more little versatility, things that you can do in combat.
Or it's like damage with slight control.
Yeah.
You know, and one of the things in touching base on that, you know, control is always pretty impressive, right? I mean, it's always
control wins battles, man.
I mean, it's just it's pretty impressive. Control's just, you know, I remember in 4th edition, one of our guys, the first major emboss that I ever saw in 4th edition, and this guy walks up and he's like a control druid, I think. You know, he locks him down, drags him across the battlefield, you know, sends him through all these blades, and like the whole series, the druid just held all his powers. He didn't do anything. He didn't use his dailies. He used his encounters, but he didn't use his dailies. He just held him and held him and held him, and held his milestones and built up action points. And when we got to the boss, it was just, we just sat back and it was embarrassing. You know, he just kind of literally drug him around, threw him in circles, and boss couldn't do anything because every time the boss tried to do something, like all these things would go off. He just sent him spinning again and get him all damaged again. And I know that's 4th edition, but control's still essentially the same. It's still control. I think that the Companions Guide offers fun and exciting new opportunities. I'm very thankful that there are no classes in the Player's Guide or the Companions Guide. I say that I'm not opposed to new archetypes, but I don't think we need new classes yet. And the reason I say that is because I'm really worried that 5th edition is eventually going to get to the point where they're throwing out slightly stronger classes, slightly stronger races. And that is one of the things that Pathfinder did that I kind of liked, is that they separated the races. So like, these are your standard races. These are like the next category up of strong races. This is the next category up of strong races. And like, that's fine. Some races are going to be stronger than others. I'm actually okay with that. I'm actually okay with if they want to make monstrous races like Orc, Bugbear, you know, that's fine. Mostly that should be used for your DM, but I'm okay with that. I'm just, you know, I'm really nervous that eventually 5th edition is going to start throwing out all the crazy stuff that 3rd did, and I hope it doesn't happen. But with the Companions Guide, I don't think it's there, right? I don't think anyone's going to look at, if you said you can play anything from Companion's Guide, you can play anything from Core, I don't think that there's one race out there that everyone's going to be like, this is what I'm playing.
I think that's very intentional. That's something that they intentionally looked at with this edition, and that they intentionally chose to be careful with, is that they don't want to fall into that trap of making, you know, well, this one has to be more powerful than that one, and that one has to be more powerful than that one. They want to. And this is kind of one of the things that tabletop gains from video games in that regard, because you look at all these competitive video games, like League of Legends is a good example, doing IEM championships right now. You guys are missing out on.
North America's
yeah,
in there, right?
TSM versus World Elite.
There you go.
So
he's a traitor. He always goes for the Koreans.
I don't care who wins as long as it's not the Koreans.
That's hatred, man. That's prejudice to the fullest. I'm telling team.
Go for it. He's Vietnamese. You friggin' racist.
No, they're all the same. So.
No, yeah, so like League of Legends, they release new champions every month or so, right? They release basically a new character, they have new abilities, blah, blah, blah. In a competitive game where people are reversing each other, they have to be very careful on how to balance it to make it equal and not, overpowering or underpowering. And that's something that they constantly strive to do, and I think that's something that Tabletop has started to kind of take note of and try and do that, saying, hey, look, League of Legends has 150 some odd champions that people are willing to play, all these different ones. Maybe we don't need to make a stronger race for people to play them, or a stronger class for people to play them. They'll play them because they want that unique feel to that class.
And isn't it in League of Legends where you can choose one of the champions that the other group can't play, right?
Yeah.
Right? So in a situation where you can choose one champion that the other group can't pick from, if every group was choosing the same champion that you can't pick, right? That one's probably strong.
Yeah.
Right? Like that one's probably powerful. So if you're getting into a group where everyone's saying, and with Adventure League saying no Eric Crockett, that makes you think, oh well, that's because Eric Crockett's strong. I personally think it's not D&D. I think that they have to use the DMs that come to them to work in Adventure League, and they probably have some very new D&D DMs. And if you are a novice DM, I can see where Eric Crockett could hurt you. I can see Eric Crockett being a major issue to a new DM because they can constantly just fly up. Now, I can shoot arrows up about as far as you can shoot them down. I mean, yeah, they come down, they're eventually going to hit the ground, but yeah, you're at disadvantage and all this other stuff. But there's weather temperaments, like if you're in a storm, that could affect you, right? Like, so there's all kinds of things, and the basic DM's not going to think, well, is it raining? Is it storming? Are there clouds out? If the Eric Crocker goes too high up, or is there anything that's going to block its vision? So like there's a million things that can prevent the Eric Crocker from being successful. We still haven't figured out a way to get his resistance fire off of this fire ganassi, minus some type of spell casting that removes it.
Right.
But you're better served just giving him vulnerability to something, right? Using spells to do something like that. So, the more I think about it, the Goliath muling, acting as a mule carrying stuff is impressive, and the Deep Gnome is just. I think that's your secret weapon. I think the Deep Gnome is just, wow. Like these guys are tough, Like I don't understand why people are like, oh my god, the Eric Crocker, but this Deep Gnome is cool. Yeah, they come built in with a feat, like, and by design in 5th edition, feats are strong. The only other class or race that gets a feat starting off is the human variant because it gets nothing else, right? It gets like, I think it gets a +2 to 2 stats or something. Mm-hmm. It gets nothing, and it gets a feat because it gets nothing. It's a Deep Gnome. Hear your dark mission, some spell casting, and let's give it a feat, right?
A level 4.
Yeah, yeah. So, it's strong. It's so impressively strong. And the way it reads, what he just said is a good point. The way it reads, I do believe it's optional to where the Deep Gnome is meant to get it upon getting a feat.
Yeah. Like you would get it in lieu of another feat, basically.
Yeah, but they've made a racial feat for Deep Gnome that's strong. Yeah. So it's basically like a magical innate or whatever they were called, divine initiate, and then now it's just magical initiate. Mm-hmm. But I think that's it, guys. Let us know your thoughts and questions. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you think of the Eric Crocker. What you think of Elemental Evil. Another question. If you guys have played Horde of the Dragon Queen, if you've played Rise of Tiamat, what did you think of those adventures? What did you think of the Mines of Fandelver? The Mines of the stuff that's come out, the modules that have come out for D&D.
Do you think they're heading in the right direction? Do you think they need to make some changes?
What changes would you have made? What would you have made? What would you have changed? In setting and sculpting, when designing your setting, guys, what did we miss? And again, it's such a hard topic to cover because the most important thing I can tell you is if you can get a diagram of the city and you don't want to draw one, find one that's similar online, print it out. City of Greyhawk, print it out. And then redesign it, guys. Give yourselves. Look at the old 3rd edition Forgotten Realms campaign, like the campaign book, and I can go to the city of Sazelle, the capital of Cormyr. I can tell you its imports, its exports, who's in charge, what kingdom they belong to, how many ships their port can hold, like notable people that's in this town, the population of this town. I can break down the population's race. Like, if you do that kind of stuff in your major cities, it's going to be more beneficial than you ever thought, right? And they have other stuff for you to go on, right? They have other books for you to go on. So I'm looking at the city of Sazelle or the city of Tilverton. Instead of Tilverton, I write New Haven. Population 1,363,200,000. Right? I'm just literally using it as a key to walk me through the creation of the town that's going to be the focus of my game, right?
Yep.
And if you want some examples, guys, if you want us to shoot you some examples, let us know. Any towns that you guys already have created, shoot us over. Our PDF is still growing. I got a lot of good files we're building together, so thanks to everyone who submitted stuff. And let us know what you think, guys. Shoot us some comments. Make sure to like the page. And if you didn't watch the whole thing on Twitch, we'll be uploaded to YouTube
here in a few hours. Yeah.
Here in a matter of hours. So I think that's it, guys. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yep. Bye.
Thanks, guys.